Super Mario RPG is very different when it comes to battling compared to Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario games. This game allows you to switch out different characters instead of being forced to use specific ones. While the 5 characters in this game that you can play are pretty balanced, I definitely have preferences on which ones I like to use. Because of this, I'm going to rank all 5 of these characters from worst to best. The rules are pretty simple. These characters are going to be ranked on how they are in battle and not at all considered how they are as characters. I also have only played the remake of this game and not the original, so while I don't know if there are differences between the 2 games, this ranking is going to be based on only the remake. Also, warning, I'm not actually very good at this game, so if there are some really overpowered strategies that I don't know about that invalidate this list, well, that's on me for not knowing them. With that being said though, let's get started. Mallow used to be the biggest meme to me. I never wanted to use him in the game, and every single time I got to the 4th character, I instantly ditched Mallow. But now I kinda see why people like Mallow a bit, but he is still by far my least favorite character in this game. There are some positives to point out though. I think Snowy and Star Rain, while you get them very late in the game, they do a lot of damage, and yes, they do cost a decent amount of FP with 12 and 14 respectively. They do a lot of damage to every single enemy, and they're pretty easy to use, so I do like those moves. But my favorite move from Mallow is actually Thought Peek. Thought Peek allows you to see the enemy HP and a little description, and you get to see if there's any weaknesses on the boss. This is really the only time I actually notice elemental weaknesses on a boss, because sometimes they're not very obvious, and when you do use that, you can actually take advantage of the boss's weaknesses. This is very useful, especially if you don't know a lot about the bosses in this game. And Mallow is a great tool to exploit the weaknesses in bosses. Because he has lightning moves and ice moves with Snowy, he can very much do a lot of damage to these bosses that you really wouldn't expect. The problem is that I never really do Thought Peek unless I just randomly want to, or just the boss is taking a long time. And the positives that are there, I really think are overshadowed by the weaknesses. And that main weakness is that Mallow is so weak. His attack feels so bad, and it's even comparable to Peach, it's worse. His normal attack, which most moves in this game are just going to be your generic attack, is the worst in this game by a decent margin. And honestly, the moves that he gets, the good ones, obviously Snowy and Star Rain, he really only gets at the end game, which is not good. I honestly just don't really care about the weaknesses in general. It's just not very helpful to me personally. I don't use them on normal enemies, and I only sometimes use them randomly on bosses if I notice them. So because of that, I never really have a use for Mallow. I'd rather use characters that do a lot more damage, and Mallow is absolutely not one of those characters, and that is why he's here at number 5. Peach and the number 3 spot were super close on this list, but I decided to put Peach here at number 4. But here's the thing, Peach has some great things going for her. Her healing is ridiculous. I've never had a party member in really any Mario RPG be this good at healing. She can literally full revive a party member with 2 FP with comeback. That is ridiculous, and she fully heals the entire party with Group Hug for only 4, and Therapy heals 1 party member for 2. That is insanely good. That healing is super helpful when needed, and that's why I do like using Peach sometimes. But her attack still sucks. It's not as bad as Mallow's, but it's definitely the worst out of the people left, aside from obviously Mallow. And even then, I really only use her in the late game bosses because that's the only time I need healing. Aside from that, when you're fighting normal enemies, you're not going to get hit by that many enemies, so because of that, you don't need her healing. I guess it's free healing whenever you go into a battle instead of using items, but I've never really looked at it that way. So because of that, I never really have her in my front lines. I really only put her in, heal a character, and then put her back into the box. And that's why I really don't use Peach that much. She's useful, but I don't remember the last time I actually attacked with her. I think in my latest playthrough, I think I used her neutral move once, and that was during the Smithy fight, because I just randomly had her out to heal and I forgot to switch her out. So she's not very helpful with attacks. She's only helpful with being a healer, and she is a very good healer. But honestly, all her other moves, I don't really care about. I mean, I know she has some status moves, I know she has a good attack move, but it's not really something I care about. I care about the top 3's attack. I don't really care about Peach's, and that is why she lands here at number 4. After seeing Bowser ranked above Peach, I think it's very obvious which stats I actually care about in characters in this game. And that, of course, is attack power. I mean, Bowser is the perfect example of that because Bowser has the most attack in this game. Now, to be fair, he actually doesn't have that much more attack power than both Geno and Mario, and even Peach for that matter, but he has way more than Mallow, and also, he's just strong, so it's very good to have him in your party because of that. And also, some of his special moves are very good. I really like using Terrorize on bosses. If you can lower their attack if they're affected by it, it's very helpful, and that's why I like using it at least once to see if it's affected by it. And also, Crusher and Mecha Koopa Stomp, while they're learned pretty late into the game, they're strong moves, obviously. They take a ton of FP, but they do a lot of damage. But even though Bowser is in my party, I do have flaws with him, and that's why I was kind of contemplating putting him here at number 4. There's a couple flaws with him. One is that he has very little speed. He is easily the slowest character out of your party, and it shows. He is always going last, even slower than some bosses, which is very much not preferred. He also does not learn that many moves. He has Terrorize right off the bat, but you learn Crusher and Mecha Koopa Stomp very late into the game. And to be perfectly honest, you don't really want to use those moves that much, and that's because Bowser's magic attack is terrible. It is the worst in the game out of the 5 characters. So even though Crusher and Mecha Koopa Stomp are strong attacks, you really don't want to use them. You should use Mario's special moves or Geno's special moves instead because of that. So in reality, even though Bowser is a really strong character, all I really do in my party is just make him do neutral moves on a boss. It's consistent damage, it's helpful, it's why I have him in my party, but that's why he is very clearly the weakest member out of my party, and that's why he deserves to be here at number 3. The top 2 on this list, to me, were very obvious. I think these 2 characters are by far the best in this game, at least to me personally. But I do have Geno here at number 2. Obviously, the best thing about Geno is his attack power is very good. It's the main reason I like using him, but that's not all. I really like Geno Boost. It's my favorite move from his arsenal. Geno Boost boosts up some attack and defense of a character of your choosing, which is very useful. I love using Geno Boost on either Mario and Bowser and buff them up, and then just using Geno's normal moves. It's very good, but if you do want to use his special moves, they're very easy to pull off, which is very much appreciated in this game, because some of the action commands for some characters can be pretty wonky. All you gotta do is just hold down A until 5 stars appear. That's very easy compared to other moves, which I very much appreciate. And the last main positive I want to talk about is that compared to Bowser, he has so much better speed, which is very much appreciated. And that's all the positives I want to talk about. Yes, Geno does have some other good stuff like his HP and his defense, but it's not something I really care about too much. The only reason why Geno is not number 1 is you don't want to use his special moves. His special moves are not very good compared to the number 1 spot, and the reason for this is because his magic attack isn't actually that strong. It's not as weak as like Bowser's, but it's definitely not strong compared to the number 1 spot. So what you want to do with Geno is power up the number 1 spot and then attack with them. And then just lay back with Geno and just use normal moves, which is, again, very good. Geno is very strong. He's very useful, but because he's kind of just powering up the person at the number 1 spot, I decided to land Geno here at number 2. It's funny that the character the game forces you to use is the character I have at number 1, and while that's not the actual reason I have him here, it's good that the game forces you to use this style instead of like Mallow, for example. Mario is a great character to use, at least for my playstyle personally. he has an insane amount of attack power, the most in this game, and he also has really good magic attack power, which is what separates him from Geno. He also has some good speed, and also his special moves are very good. Super Jump is the best damaging move in the game in my opinion. The move basically goes on infinitely, and even though it only goes to 100, if you get to 100, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. And this is also benefited if you use Geno boost on Mario. So because of that, it feels very broken to use, and it's not even that expensive. You can also choose to use Ultra Jump, which is technically worse depending on the boss, but honestly the only helpful part is that it attacks more than one enemy, which really you don't want to do for that. So in my playthrough I use Ultra Jump, but you really should be using Super Jump. And honestly the other thing about Mario is that he's pretty tanky, which is not something you would really expect. He has a decent amount of HP and defense. The only negative I can point out with Mario is that his moveset is lacking a lot of variety. Yes, he has Super Jump, which is broken. He really only has 3 jumps and 3 fireballs, which another negative is that I don't even really use fireballs at all. And yes, there are some elemental weaknesses, just like Mallow's Thunderbolt. I really never noticed them until it's way too late. So because of that, I never really use fireballs. I only use the jumps, which again, the jumps are very easy to pull off and very useful, which is why, in my opinion, I think Mario absolutely deserves to be here at number 1. Thanks for watching this video, like and subscribe and stuff, and also just I'm leaving now, goodbye.